Hey Scrappy Peeps, Suzanna here today to share with you some tips and tricks to use as you're creating with your Cocoa Daisy kits. This is the layout I created, and I have 6 tricks to share with you along the way. This picture is of my daughter and her swim friends when they were on a recent swim trip to Baltimore, and I thought that the kit was a perfect sunshiny kit for the sunshiny day that they had while they were up at the pool. And I really liked the title, and the title of this layout is We Are Swim Family. And so the original title said We Are Family, and I amended that. So I wanted this navy blue, which I happen to have 2 pieces of the Cocoa Daisy exclusive paper, and because it is exclusive and I cannot get it again, I wanted to conserve paper. So trick number 1 is conserve your paper and cut out the unused portion and save it for another project and be thrifty that way. So I knew I wanted a border, and so I just cut out the border and enough to put adhesive, because while I could have stuck it on the top of the 12 by 12 piece of paper, I wanted the dimension to come forwards on the page, so I did just stick it down and then trim off the excess and make it a 12 by 12 piece that way. So again, tip number 1, conserve paper. Doesn't necessarily mean conserving adhesive, but that's okay. And along those lines, you can use your big mat, as I've got there, and just measure out 12 by 12. I don't do it because I'm recording video, but you'll sometimes see that I have artist tape that I've put down on the mat to mark out 12 by 12, so that if I am trying to work precisely on a 12 by 12 page that I've reconstructed like I've done here, I don't have to count out the squares. The only problem with that is that I do frequently cut with my X-Acto blade on my mat, and so having that mapped out doesn't always, I end up cutting through it sometimes and what have you. So when I'm filming video, you don't see it, but I do have another mat. It's actually the back side of this mat. I have a taped out 12 by 12. So that is one of these subscriber exclusive digital cut files, and the file is actually for a 12 by 12 sheet. I shrunk it a little bit because I wanted to create a bit of a scene. And so my tip number 2 there, you saw that I had some packaging. That is the back of the packaging from the ephemera pack from Fancy Pants, and packaging often makes another great layer. So you see that I have the color coming through from the paper there, but I don't have to use the whole thing, and that way I'm not wasting a 4 by 6 and or larger, or having to cut into another piece of paper. And that's tip number 3 right there, and tip number 4 actually. Tip number 3 is that pocket cards or wordy elements such as this We Are Family can often be amended. They're not set in stone. So you can see here how I put swim to make it We Are Swim Family. And tip number 4 right there, what I'm doing with my X-Acto blade. When you have die cut elements like that and they have bits that are included in them, the cleanest way to get them out is with your X-Acto blade. It used to drive me nuts with the October afternoon die cut elements that came in one sheet, and you had to punch them all out, and you'd get all those little white dots that you would see through. So use your X-Acto blade and you'll get a nice clean cut and won't be upset. That is tip number 4. And so I'm going to continue to create this layout, and I wanted a little splash of color underneath that page there. So from the 6 by 6 day in the life pattern paper there, I just ripped out a little bit of red to give a pop of color. This is the die cuts. Again, they're exclusive. There's a lot of exclusives in the July kit. I used that kite and just a couple of the few little elements. The main colors in this layout, I wanted to leave the yellow as the sun, but then the remainder of the colors are navy and red, and I wanted most of the elements to be red and yellow. And I went through these elements, and there is a lot of red and navy, but not as many as I would like. So you'll see another tip coming up, that you can create your own elements. I tried the washi, and if I was smart, I could have given you yet another tip like some of the other gals on the design team did, and you could cut that washi and just have the red, which would have been really fun, but I didn't think to do that. There were some other tricky girls that did though. So I wanted these 3 sort of clusters. In many ways, there's 4 clusters. So you have the sun as one cluster. You have that kite up there as another cluster. You have the photo with some embellishments, and then you have that cluster to the left of the photo. And I wanted to create sort of a whimsy scene there, and that's why I arranged the elements the way that I did. And I used my craft foam to pop the picture off of there. You can see the fancy pants packaging that I used as the back or another layer of the photo. In a way, that could be yet another tip. Craft foam is a cheap way of being able to pop your picture. I believe I just got this as a package from the dollar store. So I had something like 20 pieces for $1, and I just popped my picture just to give a little bit of depth to the layout there. I contemplated the idea of popping the title, but because I don't like a lot of depth throughout the page, just certain elements, I decided that the title, as big as it was in the middle of the sun there, was just fine, and that I would just leave it that way. The bigger parts of die cuts, I like to use my ATG where I can, but when I can't do that and you have the finer bits, the liquid glue adhesive works really well. And when it does seep out from behind the pattern paper, it does dry clear, so you don't have to worry about that. And that made gluing that down easy work. Then I just used, again, my quick dry and put the bulk of the letters to adhere the title down to the page there. I love those red stickers from Evalicious. I am starting to gather a whole collection of them thanks to the year plus that I've been with Cocoa Daisy. They really make great title work, especially for day in the life and smaller titles. So this is tip number 5. Don't have the right color embellishment that you want? No problem. Get out your stamps and you can stamp it in the color that you want. So there weren't many red and navy blue embellishments that worked with this, or worked for what I had in mind for this layout. So I got out my stamps that came with the kit, and I just stamped a red shelf. And then I'm going to clean off my stamp, and I'm going to stamp a blue shelf so that I have a little bit more red and blue throughout the layout. Part of why I chose red and blue for this layout is that the team colors for the year-round team that my kids swim on are red and blue. So they look funny just like that, but you'll see how the embellishments that I put around them tie that together and ground those what seem to be floating elements a little bit. So I pulled out the chipboard die cuts and just created some fun layers with the chipboard die cuts, that stamped element, and some other ephemera. So that is a Cocoa Daisy exclusive die cut. And the nice thing about these is that they come out pre-cut and you don't need to punch out anything. And by overlapping the kite strings onto that element, it grounds it. And I wanted a couple of places to write location, date, titles, those kinds of things, or not titles, but subtitles per se. And so these labels were provided nice little places to tuck those in. I do journal on this layout. You don't see that, and my journaling ends up going underneath that bottom strip on the left-hand side. And I did use 2 date stamps, or the date stamp up near that top kite bit, and then I also used just a fun roller stamp down there with where I'm working right now, just for some fun. And again, I did one of those in blue and one of those in red so that I was getting color embellishments that I wanted. So I'm just using some of the word stickers and the hearts and a few other things. I'm going to put the date up there, and I'm going to journal down there on the left-hand corner. I really love these word stickers from Pretty Little Studio, but the way that I had aligned things, it was going to get too busy, especially with that really big title there. So I just used a few of them, just enough to enhance the photo, I want to say, in my storytelling, but not to take away or detract from the storytelling. So then I want to put some of these clusters that I've arranged down, and I just grabbed my liquid glue. I could have used my HEG there. There was no reason that I did one or the other than the fact that the liquid glue was right there and I didn't have to reach far for it. So I glued all these things down, and right there is where I'm going to put the journaling underneath, and I stamped the date up here. And it's nice to overlap the elements a little bit so that they can be clustered. And coming up is my last and final tip for you, tip number 6. No foam adhesive, don't worry about it. I had craft foam that was the exact same height that I had popped the picture, and I wanted these elements around that picture, so it was a perfect way of getting those elements the same height off the page without worrying about having to fight and level things out per se. So that is my process video for this layout. In a minute, we're going to call it good. Thanks for joining me today. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask in the comments below. We've got a couple of close-ups coming up. Thanks for stopping in today. Take care.